Steve here from Steve's Internet Guide. In this video we're going to look at port forwarding. So what is port forwarding and why is it used? To understand port forwarding you need to be familiar with your internal network, your home network, and I've got a little diagram here that's meant to depict a typical small business and home network, and we have a collection of computers here connected to a router and connected to the internet. Now usually this connection is a cable connection, an ADSL connection, or a fiber connection, and this router can be a wired router or it can be a wireless router. It makes no difference. Now it's called a NAT router because what it does, it performs a task called network address translation. Now that arises because these IP addresses here are internal IP addresses and they're not allowed out onto the internet. So any packets going from the internal network to the external network can't use these IP addresses. Instead they have to use the single IP address here. So this NAT router basically does an address translation. It translates one of these addresses into this external address, and it does the reverse when packets come in from the external network or the internet onto your internal network. This NAT router functions as a firewall. So what it does is it actually allows traffic that originates internally to go out onto the internet. So when you're sitting at a computer and you're browsing the internet, you make the request external and the traffic comes back from the internet, but it's okay to come back from the internet because the connection originated internally. It didn't originate externally. Now if someone tries to originate a connection from the internet into your internal network, then this firewall, this NAT router, will block that attempt. So the basic rule is you can connect out but you can't connect in. Now that is okay and most people are quite happy with that, but what happens if you have a service on this internal network? Maybe you want to put a web server on here, but more commonly it's a game. So a lot of games are internet-based games, and you need access from the internet into your internal network. So how do you get from the internet into your internal network? Well, the answer to that is port forwarding. So what port forwarding does, it makes a port on any one of these computers, and you have to select which one, appear not to be external or to be here on the external network. So this port here effectively shows up here. So let's take an example and we'll say this is port 80. So what we've got is an IP address and a port number. Now that IP address and a port number maps to an IP address and a port number here. So a packet coming here destined for this IP address and this port number would actually go to this IP address and this port number. And when I sent a packet out onto the internet, it would, instead of going out as 192.168.1.3 port 80, it goes out as 109.155.209.167 port 80. Now this IP address is reachable from the internet, this IP address is not reachable from the internet. So basically I forwarded this port from here to here, and that's what port forwarding is. It's a mapping between an internal port and IP address to an external port and IP address. I say it's very commonly used for gaming, but it also can be used for providing services like a web server on an internal network and making it available on the internet. Now port forward is configured on the router, on this NAT router, so you have to go to your NAT router and set up port forwarding for it to be available, and I've got a video showing you how to do that, and I'll put a link in the description of this video so you can actually have a look at that if you want to. Now once you've actually configured port forwarding, you can actually check it. If you go onto Google and just do a search for Open Port Scanner or Port Forwarding Checker, you'll find some online utilities where you can check to make sure you've configured port forwarding correctly. Now normally when you do these checks you shouldn't see any open ports because most internal networks don't expose anything to the internet. But if you have configured port forwarding, then you would expect to see an open port. You'd expect to see the port that you've actually forwarded. So here I've just done a quick search for port forwarding checker or open port scanner, and I've got two utilities that I've found, and they automatically pick up your IP address. This is the external IP address. It is different from the IP address shown in the diagram because that diagram was created some time ago. And I just type in the port here I need to check. Now, if you'd configured port forwarding to port 80 like I showed in the earlier on in the slide, then you just click there to check the port. Now, I haven't configured port forwarding, so I expect this port to be blocked. And you can see here it comes back with an error saying it couldn't get to the port, which is what you expect because I haven't opened up that port. And here's the open port checker. Now, they vary in the fact that it lets you put a range of ports in here so you can scan a variety of ports. These are actually meant for security checking, really. So you just enter the starting port address and the ending port address and click scan. And I've done it earlier, and you can see here that it's all coming up filtered. In other words, it's all blocked. Just to finish on, a list of resources. If you go to the tutorial on the site, Understanding Port Forwarding, you should find a list of resources at the bottom, and most important, TCP/IP ports and sockets. You really need to understand that to understand how port forwarding works, how it maps between the IP addresses, internal IP addresses and external IP addresses. And there's another tutorial on internal and external IP addresses, and I say there's a video as well, a YouTube video that I've got a link to in the description that you should actually have a look at. Will give you a better understanding of how port forwarding actually works. That's the end of the video. If you got any comments, then use the comment form below. If you liked it, then use the like button below. If you want to receive notifications of new videos, then you can subscribe to the channel. I also publish an occasional newsletter, and if you'd like to subscribe to the newsletter, then just go over to the website and you should find a subscription form there. So that's the end of the video. Until next time, bye.